So first presentation is from Eurobotics, actually from the General Secretary of the Eurobotics. Many of you probably know Eurobotics. Eurobotics is one of those European technology platforms. It's not like a digital platform, but it's more like a physical gathering or the grouping of certain organizations and people. And fundamentally, what the European technology platforms do is to connect us, the people who are into research and development and innovation business, connect us with the European Commission and make sure that our message is went all the way to the policymakers, and then the policymakers actually use our messages, our feedback, to create the next agenda, your research agenda for the Europe. And basically those are the open calls you have been seeing in Horizon Europe, and before that in Horizon 2020 program, and that allows us to actually make sure that our voice is heard there, and then we can have the possibility to apply for that funding. The second element is related to the readiness of a manufacturing factory. I think this is also very interesting topic. This is something what we have developed during this DIH² execution of this DIH² program, because normally European programs or European research programs, they are very innovative. They require normally that something new in the technology is researched and deployed. And many of the small medium-sized companies are not probably on a level where they can benefit from these programs. So this criteria or this assessment what we have created is a way, first of all, to actually make sure that the companies we are taking, the SMEs we are inducting into a European project, they have the right level of digitization for going forward with the further deployment of this highly innovative technology. For example, if you're looking to take a company which is going to make use of artificial intelligence, if they don't have proper amount of data, if they don't have proper amount of connectivity, there is no point to have this company actually to deploy and try to deploy some artificial intelligence in that organization. So this is along those lines, mostly focused on robotics and artificial intelligence, and it also helps you to define the use cases. Because the fundamental asset or the fundamental let's say like the core of how you make a European application is based on these use cases, and how to define these use cases connected with the business cases is very critical. So I'm not going to take more time. I think we have our first presenter already available. Reinhard, are you there? I at least saw you. Yes. So Reinhard is the General Secretary of Eurobotics. He's going to tell us that how we can benefit and what Eurobotics does. I stop sharing, and Reinhard, you can start.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ali, for the kind introduction. Let me just see whether it's possible for me to share the screen. It should be there. Should be fine here. Okay. First of all, thank you, Ali, for inviting me to this meeting today. As far as I understood, you are not so familiar with the infrastructure of Eurobotics, so I would like to introduce what we are and what we do and how you can interact with us. So we are an association which was founded only in 2012, but has much longer roots in the community. So about 20 years ago, there were an industrial community and a scientific community, and more people discovered that it's worth to more closely cooperate with each other. And this initial Euron network of excellence from the academic side and the European technology platform jointly founded our current association for the benefit of all the stakeholders in Europe in 2012. And since then, this means this year we have the 10th anniversary of the actual association. We try to promote robotics in Europe for robotic players in Europe, but also, of course, we want to promote the collaboration with the European Commission. We have kind of topic groups. I will come to this later. These are basically the content driving groups within our community, dealing, for example, with individual application areas, with individual technologies, but also other things like standardization, ethical issues, entrepreneurship, or one of the new things is environmental aspects and environmental sustainability. We have been the partner in the Horizon 2020, a public-private partnership with the European Commission. And many of those projects are still running. And, you know, the DIH² environment, this is one of the big projects which came out of our discussion with the Commission on how to bring benefit to the whole community. After the end of Horizon 2020, in fact, it was a little bit before it actually ended, we discussed on how to move on, and the Commission wanted us to team up with people from the data world and with AI, which makes sense in our view, because a modern robotic application has already a lot of software components, and the AI component itself will be increased more and more over the next years. And therefore, we created together with other associations similar to us on the data side and on the AI side, a new association which is called ADRA, which is more or less an umbrella on top of the existing structures, whereas a lot of the groundwork is done in our existing associations, and especially for the robotic side and Eurobotics. We are the drivers of several big events. So one of the biggest ones is the annual Eurobotics Forum, the ERF, which is this year, end of June in Rotterdam, and we are moving around from location to location. Next year it will be in Odense in Denmark, and for 2024 the discussions are ongoing where it will be located. Apart from that, we have also a public outreach event, which is the European Robotics Week, mainly also motivating young people to seek for a career in one of the STEM subjects, which is also very important. If you see the industrial needs for good young people who are trained and willing to work in these subjects, it's very important to start early to motivate boys and girls to look into these technical subjects. Apart from that, we are creating also alliances. We want to foster this a bit more in the upcoming years on particular industries, on specific application areas, and so on. And also, we are engaged in some of the competitions, which is always a good way on one hand to benchmark different approaches, but also to drive the technology in more realistic settings, also for students already, which is with a regular practice work in an academic lab, not so easily possible. As an outcome of the discussion with the Horizon 2020 activities with the European Commission, we found that 4 priority areas are of highly relevance, because they have an innovation aspect for Europe, but also a societal relevance. And one of the 4 areas is what we call Agile Production. And all these 4 areas where the basis, so to say, for the topic setting of the Digital Innovation Hub networking projects, such as DIH². And DIH² is one of the projects which fall under Agile Production, as you know, but we also have other areas like healthcare, agri-food, maintenance, and inspection. And here we want to have a continuity for the future to keep these networks alive, and also not only have a very good exchange within one of these communities, but also to have a very good exchange between the communities, so that technology developed, for example, in the agri-food sector, if it's relevant, could be transferred to any of the other sectors and the other way around. So having a large network of different players where, for example, things where you would not see immediately a joint activity from the application area side, the technology could feel still similar and transferred from one to another. What we want to do is, in the long run, we want to address the challenges for the next decade. We all know that Europe at the moment is in a very challenging situation. So this also includes that we need to keep the economy, grow it even, at the same time addressing climate change and other things, and of course having a healthy living environment for the people, which includes the whole food sector. And also growing the economy means being sure that the resources are here, and then that the production can take place in Europe and not everything is outsourced to other countries in the world. And here robotics can play a major role to bring this ecosystem to good growth. If we want to look at the big picture, what do we need to do for the communities? On the one hand, robots need to be easy to deploy and use. So we don't want to have too many robotics experts that are needed to install something in a small company. Ideally, we have a clearly defined return on investment for any robotics technology, and users can basically operate things on their own after a short introduction. That would be a dream for the future, and this is what we want to do with a future generation of robotics, both for factories but also for other application areas such as service robotics. Of course, we want to also ensure that the business is more resilient, agile production, service delivery, integrating AI and data for a maximum of utilization. And like I said before, going for the circular economy, recycling, and so for products, but also for the robotic system itself, and this being built in as a consideration from the beginning on. And as we have seen in the COVID times and other due to other things, we know that sometimes this transformation and the need can be more rapidly needed than we would have expected. COVID showed very well. There were a lot of good prototypes available, but the bridge to the market was not yet there. This is something where the Digital Innovation Hubs and the environment and related projects could help to bring this up to speed. Of course, AI is part of the solution. We want to combine very good research with the physical intelligence of the machines. And on the same page, there is a lot of standardization ongoing at the moment. We need to ensure safety, ethical and legal constraints are never compromised, and that these systems are easily to be put into practice. When we see the need for combining physical and AI things, it's clear that we need AI for the physical machine, but also we can use it not only to make the right decisions in a robot, but also for the design and development process of robots and more general automation systems itself. And this is something to be considered, but always the safety of the human who either operates or works in the same environment is of highest priority and must never be compromised, and we have to do this. Yeah, this was basically the introduction on the where we come from, what our main thoughts are. I would like now to go back to the little bit of the story, what happened in the past. So we had Eurobotics, we had the Spark public-private partnership, and we had different associations who were willing to join the forces to create ADRA and to basically work on this. However, we as Eurobotics want to drive a roadmap, which is then also feeding and giving input to the work program generation process of the European Commission itself. So it's always a long process where the influence of the association takes place only a couple of years after we give some input. And therefore, it's important to have a large community who can provide that kind of input. And what we had in the past here, we created this so-called SRIDA, the Strategic Research innovation and deployment agenda, which is a generic document. We created it before the start of Horizon Europe and before 2021. We added the different viewpoints, and this is a very high-level document. This needs now, in the next phases, to be implemented, and the actual input to the work programs is derived from that one. To create this one, we defined the framework together with the other players here. So the frame conditions are laid out by the European fundamental rights, values, and so on. But what we want to be, we want to act as an innovation ecosystem enabler, which means we need to work on skills and knowledge, data for AI, but also experimentation and development. And especially this experimentation means to create prototypes, to create new ideas for actual applications. And from the technology point of view, this means there is a lot of action and interaction, both between humans and humans, machines, machines and machines. When you look into future environments as they are anticipated to come, there, this action and interaction is one of the most important parts. Just to mention the buzzword like cobots and other things, which require to be really operational, also a lot of sensing and perception, as well as knowledge and learning as two other major building blocks. And based on that, the reasoning and decision making will drive the robot. And of course, to have all this done, it's very good if there are also systematic methodologies for systems development, for hardware development, but also for integrated tools that allow for quick prototyping and quick development of new application areas. In this context, we had a deep dive together with the other partners, each sector, and for us, of course, robotics, had a deep dive, and we found out here what the influence factors are. It's mechatronics, it's sensing and perception, decision-making, interaction, but also regulation standards and design and integration processes that form the components where you can derive physical platforms and other tools, and at the end to satisfy the markets in the different areas like production, like logistics, other services. And of course, this requires also development and uptake, testing and certification before you can bring something to the market. So this is something where we have to deal also with real industrial challenges, like in an actual production environment, you have dust, you have pressure, you have people, you might have even some heat or explosive environments. And there you need all this contextual understanding and the right interaction, and keeping always in mind that this needs to be economically reasonable to have such a system in practice approached. So what we are doing here in the work program generation process, we collect via our topic groups the input. So, so to say, the left-hand side here, where the input comes from, this is done in our topic groups where you can join. And we have topic groups which are domain related, like agriculture, healthcare, industrial robotics. We have cross domains one, for example, aerial could be applied in several areas. We have bio-inspired one, miniaturized, which become more and more important. And we have also aspects of safety or wearables as a second column. As a third column, we have pure technology topic groups, such as AI and cognition, navigation, perception, but also cloud robotics and cybersecurity, which are, apart from one of the key issues, I think, for this group, also the mechatronics, very, very important. And as the last column, we do have non-technical issues such as education, training, entrepreneurship, and environmental sustainability. All this input from the topic groups is then collected and distilled into roadmaps. And here the discussions start with the European Commission how to influence the work programs. And at the moment, there is a process underway to already define the topics for the work program in 23-24. So the first rounds, this year's call and next year's call, were based on old input and mainly driven by the Commission. But now the Commission explicitly asked to provide input, in our case now via the ADRA Association. But it's important to keep the robotics thing up and running. And it seems in recent communication that the Commission sees a high value of having robotics as a prominent thing in the area of contribution to the new things. So what we want to do is we want to help the Commission shape the right work programs. What we want is also from the community, which means also from you, the input. What is actually needed? What is the need of a company? What is the need of a research institute? And how can we bring these things together? And Eurobotics here is trying to create an environment and also teaming up with the underlying digital innovation hub networks such as DIH², but also the others, especially via our coordination action Rodin, to see how we can bring the best value to all the networks and make them sustainable. I think my time is almost over. Therefore, I would like just to invite you to join and engage with us. As I said already in the beginning, one of the things, if you want to meet other people from the environment, you could come to the European Robotics Forum in Rotterdam. This would be one of the next opportunities to meet people in person after the long COVID time. I think this is also a very good opportunity to actually talk to each other. Yeah, this was my short overview, and now I'm open for questions.
Yeah, if you have any questions, you can raise hand, please. Well, in the same way, I know actually every one of you already know that European Rob, because our first session for the DIH² for meeting together and basically getting the network of is also at the same place in Rotterdam, the day after after European Robotic Forum. So I think it's worth actually to also then join the European Robotic Forum, because you are coming there anyway. So if you also join the European Robotic Forum, this would be something really wonderful. Maybe many of you already go there, have already plans. If not, this is something to be considered because you are going to be there anyway. But if you have any questions now from Reinhard, please, you can ask. But Eurobotics is one of the main partners for all of us if we want our voices, because the people in the Commission are not necessarily expert or have all the expertise. So they rely on our input to formulate the next research programs. And this is actually good for us because we can formulate the research program as we see from the expert point of view.
Yeah, and I think it's important for the community to set the right priorities because, you know, it's all of our personal tax money at the end, if you consider funding. So it's really worth to channel it in the right ways and not to get the money invested in things which are not taken up. So one of the problems in previous work programs was always that you had very good academic research prototypes, but then the next steps were missing. And I think this is exactly something where we need to bring the good ideas and the good results of projects into practice. And yeah, the digital innovation hubs are clearly something which can contribute to that.
Yes, and actually just Michael reminded us that DIH² is one of the gold sponsors of European Robotic Forum.
Yes, and I'm very thankful. That's really great to have you there.
I think we are actually quite happy for that. Okay, I think there is also possibility to ask the questions at the very end. If not now, then maybe we can actually move to the next topic, which is Daumantas from Lithuanian Robotic Association. I think this is something what we have created. Actually, Daumantas is the main orchestrator of this development, and I think it is something to worth share with the whole community and try to standardize this practice, because it makes us all move forward coherently. Yes, Daumantas, please.
Thank you, Ali, and it's nice to see you, Reinhard. Hello to you as well in this webinar. So I will just briefly tell you what we do and how do we where do we start with going boots on the ground to the companies, to the manufacturing companies, and how we look at the processes and what we developed as a audit tool for in the DIH² project. So let me share my screen. I will just use the RAMP platform, which is one of the development areas of DIH² project. So I will start by briefly saying that in Lithuanian Robotics Association, one of the main activities is the digitization audit or technological audit, depending on the scope of the requirements by the company. We do audits quite often, and it is one of the main activities we do. We go out to the companies. We go out mostly to the manufacturing companies, but also logistics companies. We look at their processes. We define kind of, in a structured way, and then by identifying certain bottlenecks, we are able to use our network, use our Digital Innovation Hub network of Lithuanian robotics services providers, or outside to the international arena, and then we are able to suggest certain solutions to the companies. And that's been working quite well. We've had positive feedback from the companies who were helped by us and were suggested the solutions that are now standing and working in their factories. So this activity we see as one of the main points of engagement with the industry and keeping our activities very close to our end users and clients. So we try to stay very close. And we use that experience with the auditing and also road mapping for the companies to create one of the tools that we use in DIH² as well. But this RAMP platform will be used in other projects as well, and as a separate platform in the future. So we helped integrate that tool into this platform. So this is the beta version, so it will be updated and the interface will change a little. But now I'll just show you for the presentation purposes the general interface and what the contents are of the audit tool, and I will try to explain what kind of aspects we are trying to touch to get and to try to understand the company's digital readiness level. One point I would like to mention that even though here it says it's a self-audit, and of course it can be done by the companies themselves, but as I mentioned in the very beginning, we see this as a tool to go out and start the conversation and get that cooperation working and try to understand what really is the most important aspect in the company that they want to improve, and then we help them with that. Yeah, so let me jump into the tool. So the tool is structured in quite a simple way. It's split into two big categories. which are then subsequently split into 3 subcategories. So first big category is the technological category, which is comprised of advanced manufacturing systems, agility and interoperability subsection, ICT subsection, and cybersecurity subsection. And then there's the second big part, which is the business part, and that touches mostly upon manufacturing strategies, economic and social sustainability. So we split that to make it easier to navigate, but also try to get a better understanding what it looks like, and so that we can then compare the results with other companies as well, or sector of the manufacturing sector, or a bigger scope of analysis can then be enabled. So let me jump into the first subsection, which is the advanced manufacturing systems. Generally, here we try to go deep, quite deep into how well our companies are able to adapt to changing conditions, either in the market or with their clients when some requirements, from some production requirements are changing, or some standards are changing. So generally, we design this in a way that each question has a current assessment level, which you then select from 1 to 5, and then we also put in a target in 3 years that the company is aiming for, so that we could not only understand where the company is right now at each question and at each section, but we also want to see their ambition, where they want to be in some matter of time. And then, of course, there's the comment section where companies, or specifically in our case, where we go out to companies, the DIHs or their representatives and experts, put in the comments in as long as manner as possible, so that this form can then be analyzed, and some conclusions can be made. Each question has an explanation for each level. So I'll just show you an example. So for the first question, agility and speed, how much time does it take for your factory to adapt production process from one product to another? Meaning basically using the same production line and then adapting the whole production from one product to another. And then we kind of assess these levels from 1 to 5. So 1 is the lowest, which the answer to is it takes weeks to adapt. And then level 5 is basically real-time adaptation, which is for many companies that we spoke to is one of the levels they're trying to achieve. Other categories that involve, for example, ICT, is mostly focused on data acquisition, data analysis. So this part is really important, as Ali mentioned in the beginning, for the AI solutions. So I mean, if the company doesn't have sensors, doesn't have data, there's really no point in using AI to analyze it or to help draw some conclusions. So in that case, this section is mostly focused on data acquisition and connectivity, also cloud solutions. But so we really try to understand how the factory works on the data level here. Cybersecurity is a small part. 2 main questions is general overall security and production system security. So overall is obviously the whole company's systems, and the production system security is mostly focused to the machinery connectivity and their security level. So this is just a short section. Of course, in the future it will get bigger, and we'll adapt it by when the situation will require it. Going further, I would like to say that the manufacturing strategies section is mostly focused on company management and kind of the strategy of the company, whether they have the ambition to go towards a digital factory or don't. What kind of cooperation models do they have with external partners, academia, industry, suppliers, or their customers, how that collaboration works. And of course, if the company might have an ambition, but if they don't have a clear investment plan to meet that ambition, then of course it's not going to work. So we kind of go into detail on these, and of course, as I mentioned, each question has an explanation of each level. So the company is able to orientate themselves, or they can get help from a local DIH or a local player that can help them navigate this form and get those results in. Economic sustainability, very shortly, it's mostly focused on collaboration of the company with partners, suppliers, clients when developing their products and services. Data analytics, how do they see that? Is it an important part of their business model? Quality control, of course, but also we try to understand how they how and whether they use ROI, return on investment, or other financial planning tools to actually choose the best solution for them, or they don't. So basically, what they planned up, do they measure it, or they just buy technology they want and then leave it, or they really actually put all the data and follow that along their financial years to get that data matched with the initial calculations of return on investment. So this kind of again shows the determination of the company and their focus on digitization, and whether that really is on their mind, or is it just just another thing that's happening. So that helps us see their readiness level very well, this section as well. But also we kind of try to include the social aspect and social sustainability aspect, which in our experience, we did over 10 audits with this form, and more than 10 with our other internal tools. Really very few companies measure the impact of robotization on their employees, and this section is usually comes to them as a surprise, and they kind of comment that we haven't thought about that before, but we then try to help them navigate and try to look at the situation from different sides. So of course, we're asking about employee performance. Do they measure new technologies as being as a driver or a stop to work to the worker performance? Do they adapt their employee motivation and compensation plans according to increased productivity if they just bought a robot or other automation technology? So we kind of ask these questions, and then the companies usually start to think about it more, and as I said, it usually comes as a surprise for them, and as a new thing that they never thought of before. And then the whole audit tool allows us to export the whole scores. It can then show a graph of the average scores of each question, There is a print option, and of course, because I didn't put in data, it looks like quite simple, but generally you get a report with average scores with spider graphs to actually get that feeling where generally the company is on each of the big categories, and whether they have the ambition to be better. What I would like to, so this is the tool that I wanted to present. Generally, the audit consists of around 30 questions. I can't remember the exact number. It can be leaned down because some questions can be skipped because some of them are not relevant, but that usually depends on the type of production that the company is doing. In some cases, we've had that some of the questions couldn't be answered by the company, so we just left them out, of course, and didn't put them in the average scores. What I would like to say, maybe as a last thing, is that this tool is quite the first step. It's kind of a stepping stone that we then use to create kind of an automation roadmap for the company to try to draw them a clear path where they could go with the ambition they have and with the situation they have in different parts of their company, and what they could improve and how. So this is just a first stone, a stepping stone for companies to understand and kind of try to analyze their company from different aspects. So that would be all, I think, for me. And of course, I would welcome any questions.
If you have any questions, you can ask. And from Daumantas, this audit would be made available for all the members in the coming days. We will clean it up. Here is the deal actually with this tool. I'm sure that there are as many of these audits exist, as far as my knowledge is, that as many organizations are there. So even within one organization, there may exist multiple, and there are several of them. But here, the particularly this tool, there is a very different way how it has been. First of all, DIH² is a very large collection of many different research organizations and experts. So actually, this has been put together with a very large amount of consultancy. The second thing about this, that it actually has been put through a set of tests through over, I think, several hundred companies that it has been tested through, and then actually inducted into the research program, and the research actually has been, so the deployment has been carried out successfully into the companies. So the idea here is that instead of each of us actually making our own this audit, it would be great that we have like a joint brain. All of us can contribute. You also have the possibility to suggest things. Of course, we don't want to make it too complicated, because it can also get too complicated if you keep adding stuff to it. And at the end of the day, if we all fill out the same online form, I think we have a collective information. We generate some sort of collective data which can be used for policy making and decision making, and collectively improve. So that's the purpose here. I'm sure that all of you have seen many of these and maybe used many of these. So, but if you are a member of DIH², you will have the access to it, and you will have the possibility to use it for your companies. And this would also actually useful to see that, okay, in your region, what is the situation with the companies as compared to the other regions. It's also a very good tool to motivate, because it can provide you many different kind of comparisons. So you can motivate the regional government, national governments, you can motivate the companies that some of your competitors in other regions are actually doing better than you. So this is actually good in that way. Any questions? No, so I think we can conclude today's session, and thank you very much for all being here.